Good afternoon and welcome to the latest issue of Print21, the weekly video news bulletin for the Australia and New Zealand print industries. This issue is sponsored by XMPie, which is asking the question of printers, what will you do differently in 2022? Good question. Take the quiz with XMPie and see how their solutions can work for you. Go to do-more.xmpie.com. The federal government's final budget before the election left industry severely underwhelmed. It contained little of meaning for printers, with industry leaders calling it a missed opportunity. Josh Frydenberg's budget, third one of the Morrison government, was aimed or seemed to be aimed almost entirely at the upcoming election, with various one-off sweeteners for voters seeming to be the main thrust, along with some low-level help for small business, which includes print, of course, many printers. There was little, though, of strategic or long-term importance. The budget saw increased funding for some apprentices, increased tax deductions for businesses investing in digital technology, for everything from laptops, websites and cybersecurity, and increased deductions for external staff training at colleges like this one behind me. However, that was about it for business. There was no move to increase migration to address the rapidly growing labour and skill shortage in the industry, and in every industry in fact. Nothing about increased TAFE funding, and to the intense disappointment of print and print leaders, there was no move by Frydenberg or the government to instigate a Buy Australia scheme for taxpayer-funded bodies, including, of course, the government itself. The $150,000 instant asset write-down was not mentioned, meaning it's unlikely to be extended beyond its current time limit, which actually is 2023 tax year it runs out. Interestingly, this year's PacPrint straddles 2 tax years, meaning if a printer plays it right, it could get an instant tax deduction of 2 lots of $150,000 at the one show. The investment in digital technology for small businesses is broad. According to Treasury, it covers everything, as I said, from laptops, update websites, subscriptions to cloud-based services. The 120 cents in the dollar deduction is for businesses with a turnover of less than 50 million bucks, which is most. Up to $100,000 a year is claimable. The 120% external training deduction is also broadly couched by Treasury. Pretty much everything will be eligible, as long as it's off-site and offers some tangible upskilling. Migration remains capped at 160,000 people a year, but the government says net overseas migration will turn from a negative 90,000 last year to a positive $235,000 in 4 years' time. That includes Australians coming back into the country. Print industry leaders were not thrilled with the third budget of the Morrison's government, which they said, while having a few bright spots, failed to show much meaningful support for the industry at all, or for the businesses within it. Calling it a cash splash for the election, Walter Kuhn, Vice President of PVCA, labelled it as disappointing, while Kelly Northwood, CEO of TRMC, said the government needs to recognise the important role print plays in the economy and said the budget was a 6.5 out of 10. Peter Harper, CEO of Industry Suppliers Association Visual Connections, he said that there were missed opportunities for tax reform and for business investment, but he did say there were positives in what he said was an interesting budget. For their full comments, all comments, go to print21.com.au. In brighter news, digital flexible packaging operation ePac has installed a second pouch making line less than 6 months after opening for business with its first line. The installation of the second pouch making line is in response to its growing Australian customer base. It only opened in Melbourne just before Christmas and will double ePac's pouch production capacity, fulfilling more orders and faster. Like all lines at ePac, it's based on the HP Indigo wide web flexible printing technology, which now comes from the HP Indigo 25K. The Melbourne site has 2 of them, and now 2 pouch making lines as well. The company is also about to move to a second shift. Jason Brown, who's the ePac Flexible Packaging Managing Director, he told Print21 that growth has always, of course, been part of the plan, but he's been pleasantly surprised by the response from the market. He said local entrepreneurs are responding to the ePac proposition in great numbers. They tend to have a philosophical desire to buy local, as they are local producers themselves. Makes sense. And they are concerned with sustainability, and buying local plays into that. Concern over global supply chain issues has also worked in our favour. Global supply issues, or global issues, have all seen Hall 6 at drupa, which many of you know well, turn into a temporary refugee centre, housing 1,000 babies and their mothers. Well done to drupa or Messe Dusseldorf for that. Newspapers have come up with a plan to recycle the plastic wraps used on home deliveries, teaming up with RedCycle. The PacPrint forums will be back, with a host of speakers now lined up. Go to print21.com.au for all those details, along with the latest product highlights, which include the Colbus Auto Box, which will be on the floor, from Graphica. Finally this week, congratulations to graphic online founders, now the 10th richest people in Australia, with $7.9 billion, or worth $7.9 billion, and that's after just 10 years. That's it for this week. Thanks for our sponsor, xmpie.com.au. This is Wayne Robinson signing off.